Hello and welcome to another update video about XRP. Yeah, XRP is getting interesting now because XRP is getting close to the lower trend line here of our triangle pattern that we are tracking. Over the last few weeks, it's basically just been dancing, or at least the last week or so, it's just been dancing here in the middle of the range. That's typically not very interesting because there's no good reward to risk ratio in either direction. At least there's no way of setting a stop really tight or anything. Now that we're getting close to the lower boundary, maybe some opportunities are coming up in the coming week or coming weeks. And I think it's important to understand that the overall bigger picture remains unchanged. So if you watched previous updates, then you already know about the triangle pattern that I'm tracking, which is a bullish scenario. Even here, the diagonal pattern to the upside, which is highly speculative though, that's also potentially bullish. And even our bearish scenario that we're tracking, one second, just want to shift all of this across. Even the bearish one that we're tracking in blue, it is actually still allowing for upside follow through after this larger correction is over. So we want to talk about these scenarios and also what is the level that actually helps us to distinguish between the short-term bullish and the short-term bearish momentum in the blue scenario. Yeah. So bullish count, we can keep it very simple. There are two. They both actually in the subwaves are moving together, so I don't need to describe both in detail, but I like the idea of a triangle here, but I also know that triangles are very, very often invalidating. They get invalidated, they break early, okay, they don't usually run all the way to the end, usually not in an ideal fashion, but they can, so I'm going to track it as a range until we get a breakout. The triangle is after this, obviously the idea is it would have started to develop in December. We have an initial three-wave move down in wave A B wave up, a C wave down, a D wave up maybe, and an E wave down, and we would break out to the upside from here. Now, that does not really, the proportions like that, if I count it like that, they are not ideal. So the better idea is, or let's say for me, the more probable scenario is that the D wave is still unfolding, maybe as an A, B, C structure in wave D, then an E wave down, and then we go up. So that is what I'm tracking as triangle. It means that we need a break above the green line, above the B wave high at $3.04 to suggest there is an earlier than, you could say even an earlier than expected breakout to the upside. That's where the price would need to break above to indicate an upside breakout is underway. Because everything within the range is simply just noise, okay? And we are coming close, however, to previous support levels. So, and by the way, typically when we track a triangle, it would break out to the opposite side of the E wave. That's at least the expectation. Now, that doesn't mean it has to happen. We also have some invalidation points. So the first local one is at $1.89. That will at least require a reinterpretation of the microstructure. But the real invalidation point is at $1.78, $1.77, $1.78. And if the market breaks below this level, then we're going to move down more directly, most likely in the blue scenario. And it could take us into that lower support region with support between $1.50 and $1.20. And then the wave 4 that in the, I can actually, one second. No, we can remove that. In the wave 4 that in the white count is still unfolding as a triangle, we would simply extend this lower, which is still valid, still possible, and XRP has been holding up quite well, actually, compared to other coins. That's why it still has a lot of room in its support area, in an overall still bullish wave count. And it would simply then drop into the lower support region. We can watch this area then for a potential reaction. And there will always be resistance levels that we're tracking that will tell us when something is turning around here to the upside. So, you know, we're approaching key levels. I've got Fibonacci micro support here. I consider that weak support between $2.01 and $2.10. Below that level, trend line, and then the $1.89 level, and then $1.77 as next structural support levels. This is what I'm watching right now. And again, I mentioned opportunities. I mean, only really if you're a range trader. I mean, this here is still all within a range. And I'm just saying we're now approaching the lower boundary of that range. We're in the lower half. We're approaching the range extremes. And there is, however, at the moment, no evidence that a low is in. Rather, it looks like we might go a little bit lower because on the micro level, that last rally that happened here from the 29th of March low, from the Saturday low, that's only a 3-wave move to the upside. There's no point in trying to count microstructures here. This is all too messy, yeah. But it's important to understand, hold on. It's important to understand what the implications are if certain levels break. So I think there is absolutely no evidence that a low is in at this stage. We can still break out to the upside, but at the moment the local trend at least is down. Need a little bit more structure. Also, we need to see how the next move up unfolds to say, okay, is this the D wave? Because if the rally is corrective, it's likely the D wave. Then we would expect another higher low in wave E before the move up occurs. Yeah, that's just here talking about the microstructure. I will also take a quick look at the bigger picture before we wrap up the video. Looking at the long-term chart for anybody who missed previous updates, this is what we've just looked at, this kind of triangle pattern, and an upside breakout should indicate that the market plans to go to $4.20 next, but more likely $5, $5.65. This would be a next ideal range. Yeah, someone asked me why I've got such a large range for XRP, like not for other coins like ADA, just because the structure is different, completely different structure. But also XRP has been holding up much better than, for example, ADA, yeah, from the last high. So it still just has a lot of room left in this support area. That's the update about XRP. Hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.